My name is Barbara Loe Fisher, and this is a vaccine commentary brought to you by the National Vaccine Information Center. Today I want to talk about swine flu, because every day we're being warned by doctors at the World Health Organization and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control to worry a lot about the new influenza A virus, which was first identified in Mexico in April 2009 and is being called the new swine flu. As of June 15th, the World Health Organization says that 76 countries have reported more than 35,000 cases, including 163 deaths. More than 100 of those deaths occurred in Mexico. We're being told that nearly 18,000 Americans have gotten sick, with about 5% being hospitalized and 45 dying. It looks like people who are in poor health to begin with are at greater risk of having complications and dying from the new swine flu, which has symptoms right now that are identical to regular influenza. Well, this is not very surprising because people in poor health are always at greater risk of having complications and dying from infectious diseases. What a lot of people don't know is that, according to CDC, true type A or type B influenza only causes about 20% of all flu-like symptoms that people experience during any given flu season. 80% of all flu-like illness is not caused by type A or B strains of influenza, including those strains contained in annual flu shots. And vaccine-acquired immunity is temporary, while immunity gained after recovering from influenza is longer lasting. The new type A H1N1 influenza that public health doctors say is making people sick around the world is an unusual combination of human, bird, and pig viruses. Nobody seems to know exactly how this new virus was created, or why it suddenly emerged in Mexico near a pig farm in mid-April, or if it will behave like past pandemic influenza viruses that caused 68,000 American deaths in 1957 and killed 34,000 Americans in 1968. Influenza pandemics usually start with mild symptoms and progress to more severe symptoms before populations acquire immunity to the virus and it dies out. The good news about the new swine flu going around is that there are signs people born before 1957 may be naturally protected and at lower risk of being infected. Why? Because those of us who recovered from influenza caused by similar influenza strains that circulated in past decades have long-lasting antibodies that help us resist infection. So the aging baby boomers have something to be happy about. But will health officials allow our children and grandchildren to get the same kind of natural, longer-lasting protective antibodies to type A and B influenza, including the new swine flu? It looks like few choices will be allowed. First, doctors in America have been insisting for the past few years that every child from 6 months to age 18 must get an annual flu shot. Second, there are now calls by U.S. health officials to give American children the first doses of experimental swine flu vaccines in the school setting. This is because the response by doctors at the World Health Organization, who immediately went into high gear within days of identifying the new swine flu virus emerging out of Mexico, declared a public health emergency. Now they have raised the pandemic flu fear alert to phase 6, which is the equivalent of the U.S. Homeland Security's code red warning of an imminent terrorist attack. Doctors at the CDC, who followed the lead of the World Health Organization, have done the same and are exercising unprecedented power that Congress handed over to them after September 11, 2001. Whenever the CDC now declares a public health emergency, that declaration allows the Food and Drug Administration to permit emergency use authorization for drug companies to fast-track creation of experimental drugs and vaccines that do not have to be tested as thoroughly as vaccines that go through the normal FDA licensing process. In this case, Congress responded to the public health emergency declaration by giving a group of drug companies $1 billion to fast-track experimental swine flu vaccines that may include whole live or killed or genetically engineered human and animal viruses, chemicals, and potentially reactive oil-based adjuvants that manipulate the immune system to boost the vaccine's potency. People who already have sensitive immune systems, such as those with allergy and autoimmune disorders, may be at special risk. In some states, like Massachusetts, Public health doctors have persuaded legislators to pass pandemic influenza legislation that will allow state officials to enter homes and businesses without the consent of occupants, to investigate and quarantine individuals without their consent, to require licensed health care providers to give citizens vaccines, and to ban the free assembly of citizens in the state. It is, of course, important for pandemic influenza vaccines to be developed for voluntary use by citizens. But what does this declaration of a public health emergency in the U.S. mean for you and your family? It means that right now you need to become educated about vaccination, influenza, vaccine risks, and the public health laws in your state. You need to find out what your rights and options are under new public health laws that may require you and your children to get vaccinated or be quarantined. Go to www.nvic.org and learn more. Register now to attend the 4th International Public Conference on Vaccination, October 2 through 4 this fall in Washington, D.C., and help organize in your state to protect your right to make voluntary vaccination choices. Call and write the state legislators you elected to make public health laws that govern you and your family. Make your voice heard. As Department of Homeland Security officials are declaring that any disease outbreak is a matter of Homeland Security. As Department of Defense officials are defining public demonstrations as, quote, low-level terrorism. As plans are being made to designate selected U.S. airports as quarantine centers through which all airplanes would be rerouted for passenger health inspection. And as fast-tracked experimental pandemic flu vaccines are being created to be given first to American children in schools, it is time for all of us, whether we are public health doctors addressing what we believe to be a true public health emergency, or whether we are ordinary citizens simply trying to protect our health and the health of our children. It is up to all of us to act in rational and responsible ways. Every pharmaceutical drug, including vaccines, carries a risk, and those risks are greater for some than others. In this time of fear, we can't let that fear take away our freedom to make voluntary health decisions. The human right to informed consent to medical risk-taking gives citizens the power to make sure that the cure is not more dangerous than the disease. Thank you.